Hey guys, this is Lex here from BWOne.com, and today we're going to do a full review of the Samsung ATIV SE for Verizon Wireless. Now in our first impressions and unboxings, we went into the contents of the box and its overall feel of the device, but now we're going to dive into pretty much the entire device and the specs and the hardware and the practical daily use of it and see whether it's worth a buy or not on Verizon Wireless. Okay, now we're looking at the entire device from a hardware standpoint. We're going to take a look around the front, the back, and internals of the device. But on the front here, you have a 5-inch display, 1080p AMOLED from Samsung. This is a vibrant display, very beautiful, guys. If you have seen a Galaxy S4 or 5, you're pretty much getting that same quality here on the screen. You do have a front-facing camera here on the top. You do have this obnoxious Verizon logo at the top as well. Wish they didn't have it there. It kind of impedes on the aesthetic design of the device, but overall it's there. You can't get rid of it. At the bottom you have their coveted home button. Now Samsung does this with their Android devices, and they're doing it with their Windows Phone as well. Now, as you can see here, if I actually scroll up, you'll see they have a search and back button for capacitive keys, and then your home button is the Windows key. So that's always good to have, and Samsung always wants at least a hardware aspect to the devices. Flipping it over on the side here, you do have a volume rocker on the side, and then everything else is pretty much clean. On here, you do have the power button, which Samsung always places on the right-hand side. For bigger devices, it's very practical to do that, and it always just makes sense. So that's a good thing to see there from Samsung. Now, there is no camera button on the side here. It's very flush, so you have to rely on the software for our camera use. Looking at the bottom here, you have a micro USB. It doesn't take USB 3.0. And on the top here, you do have your 3.5mm headphone jack with an IR blaster. So there is a Watch On app on the device, which you'll see later on in the review, that lets you change channels and pretty much scroll through your menu guide via your smartphone, which is always convenient to have. You don't have to get up for that remote, because most of us are lazy when we're watching TV. Now flipping up to the back here, you have a 13 megapixel camera with a single LED flash. Now this, I'm not too sure. I don't believe this has optical image stabilization, but the video samples that we have shown, they are pretty much great. There is no problem with recording and using a steady hand. Now on the back here, you do have an Iron Man-like speaker grill at the bottom. The speaker is housed right under that. And this may look really shiny, and you also have the Samsung logo. Now this may look like aluminium on the back here, but this is very Samsung-like. It's very plasticky. Now it does look great over time. I did find the design to be very pleasing, and it coincides well with the Windows Phone operating system. But just to showcase that this is plastic, and Samsung plastic at that, I'm just going to take the back cover off there, and you can see it's flimsy, durable, very similar to the Galaxy S4 and 3. But now we got the device open. We're going to take a look inside here. We're actually going to take the battery out just to see if we can get a milliamp hour on here. Now as you can see there's a 2600 milliamp hour battery pack inside here. Just from the jump, battery life on this thing is great. I mean, there's no problem with that. Windows Phone is great at optimizing software and hardware, and with Samsung adding a beefy battery like this, it's very nice to have. Going back to the inside of the device, you do have a micro SD card slot. Now initial impressions were that this is going to only take 64 gigabytes and below. People have commented in the sections below and said that it does take 128 gigabytes, so you're pretty much secure with storage with this device. It has about 16 gigabytes of storage on board, and then you have your SIM card slot as well. Now this isn't part of the S5 being waterproof design. This is kind of separate from that, so it isn't waterproof or dust resistant or anything like that, so you still got to be careful with this Samsung device. So we're actually going to put the battery back in, and then we're going to fast forward to actually turning on the device. Now starting with the actual lock screen, we're going to unlock it here. As you can see, I have my Naruto wallpaper in the background, and I have the very similar looking lock screen that you have on Windows Phone 8. Now I've gone ahead and done something very special with this device. I've installed Windows 8.1 Preview Developer version. Now it was my consensus that packing a Snapdragon 800 processor, 2 gigabytes of RAM, a 1080p 5-inch display, a 13 megapixel camera that takes great photos and video, you want to utilize and maximize the actual hardware on the device, and doing so would be the best with the latest version of Windows Phone. So now it doesn't come without its negatives. Now installing this update, Samsung really wasn't ready in terms of hardware and software ready for this update. So there are a bit of glitches, and you might see them in the video, but overall it's a great experience. And just to let you know, there is no Cortana. That's one of the elements of being very negative. Cortana isn't installed on this device. Now there have been reasons in certain comment sections saying that Cortana is on this device when you update it, but I guess that's regional based because I do not have Cortana. I've done everything in my power to get her on here with the 8.1 update. But other than that, we're going to get right into it. As you can see here, I have the lock screen. And I have the enhanced tile format with 3 columns instead of the basic 2. Now, the tiles in the Windows Phone operating system look beautiful on this display, guys. The colors are very vibrant. Windows Phone seem to be made for AMOLED displays, especially at 5 inches. As you can see here, it is running a Snapdragon 800 processor, so speeds are amazing. As you can see there, I do have my notification bar, so this is Windows Phone 8.1. You do have your toggle section. Now, they don't really act as toggles. They're kind of quick switchers, so to speak. So if I actually click Wi-Fi, it takes me to the app. If I scroll down, if I go to Bluetooth, but it'll actually turn on Bluetooth without going to the app. So it's very weird with its functionality as of right now. If I get into airplane mode, it just turns off airplane mode. But I go to Wi-Fi, it goes right to Wi-Fi. Now, that may be specifically because of Wi-Fi Sense with Windows Phone 8.1, which lets you tailor make all the settings for Wi-Fi by the hour, by tomorrow, the next day. You really can customize that, which I'll show you right now, actually. So let's go to all settings. As you can see, I'm actually going to go to Wi-Fi and go to Wi-Fi Sense. As you can see here, you have settings like accept terms of use for me when required, connect to Wi-Fi hotspots, edit info. As you can see, that is Wi-Fi information. And it gets even bigger than that. You can share your saved Wi-Fi connections with your contacts inside of your device. So you have full control of how you access Wi-Fi, how you actually use it, and things along those lines. It's a great experience, and I feel as if most modern day smartphones or high tiered software should have settings like this. This is pretty much PC like software. So we're going to actually go back to the home button. As you can see here, just overall speeds are very, very fast. There's no lag on this device like there really isn't at all with Windows Phone devices. There is no Cortana, so I'm actually going to click the search button there. As you can see, I get the regular Bing. Now, I have used Cortana on my Nokia devices, so it's very upsetting. You really can't go back to Bing search once you use Cortana. But just go to messages. We're actually going to go to a new message here. And you can see here you have the swipe keyboard. And this is going to be a rundown of 8.1, but just some of the major features that make this device better. As you can see here, you have swipe now incorporated in the keyboard by default, but you can also as well type as well. So that's something that really helps with a bigger display, and using swipe in my experience is pretty good. Going home there. Now, as you can see here, now Samsung doesn't really have features that correlate well with their Android devices. They have, I guess, the smart stay, which means like you watch video, the video pauses when you look away and continues when you look back. There aren't any hardware elements to that, but there are specific apps. So as you can see here, I have watch on. And I have it connected to my Vios TV. I do have a Samsung Galaxy. I have a Samsung TV, so it works much better with this. As you can see, you have a remote control option up there, and it's very basic. Your volume control, power button, mute, and you have a little scroll thing there that lets you go more into advanced options. It works really well. In my experience, I really don't use it as much because there may be a haptic feedback feature to turn on, but I couldn't find it. So I like to actually have feedback when I press these buttons because then I don't know what's actually going on. Going back here, we're actually going to go back down to S here. And there are some other apps like Samsung Link. Now, you guys may know this if you have tablets and phones from Samsung, but this pretty much connects this to the device via wireless technology, and you can share media content with those devices. Now, I've done it with the Samsung Galaxy S5, and it worked well, seamlessly. There was no issues with that. And I've also done it with my Samsung TV. So it's really good to have. It really minimizes steps necessary to transfer your content to whichever device you want to. Another app that Samsung has bundled with the Samsung ATIV SE is ATIV Beam. Now, this is very reminiscent of the bump feature that was marketed well by Samsung in the campaign for the Samsung Galaxy S4 and the S3. Now, it does use NFC technology, so it is you are able to use it with Android devices as well. iPhones are kind of out of that picture for right now. They do not have NFC, but you can transfer, as you can see, music, video, documents, and pictures very seamlessly. All it does is take a tap with the phone that has NFC technology, and you're good to go. Now, there is a camera app from Samsung here that allows you to use some of the features that you find on their actual Galaxy devices. So if I can just find it here, it will be good to go. Shooting modes, here we go. So as you can see, they have auto, continuous shot, beauty, and HDR. It's not all the features that they have on their Galaxy devices, but it is some. You can kind of see the integration is kind of gimmicky, so to speak. It seems like it kind of just rehashed it and put it on without really focusing on the quality of the app. But it does work. The photos do come out as continuous in beauty and etc. So I actually didn't find myself using it as much. I found myself as using the main camera app just because it's quicker to launch, and it just has some of the things that I need. I don't really need those Samsung gimmick features. In terms of bloatware, this device doesn't come with much at all. The only really bloatware that I have seen on the device are things like NFL News, or if not NFL News, NFL Mobile, and my Verizon Mobile. And there are a couple of other ones down here, I believe. So you do have Verizon Tones as well. But the beautiful thing about Windows Phone operating system is you really don't have to have those apps on there if you don't want them. You can just hold this down here, and you can uninstall, which I will do because I don't use their apps at all. So in terms of bloatware, you're pretty much safe. If you don't want something, you can just uninstall it, and you can do that with most of the apps that are on the device. Call quality and actual volume and calls and clarity worked very well. There was no degradation of quality when calling someone, and vice versa. Callers heard me just as fine. LTE data on this thing is a beast. For some reason, I get much more faster speeds on my Windows Phone device than I do on my Android devices. So it may be something to do with the software, which is a good thing going for Microsoft. But in terms of data, voice, and overall speeds, this thing is pretty boss. Battery life on this bad boy, you get about a day and a half to 2 days of moderate to heavy use. I watch YouTube heavily. It's like a daily ritual for me. I listen to music constantly. I'm always on Wi-Fi, so using Wi-Fi and LTE switching constantly does kind of do a wear and tear on the battery, and this thing had no problem in handling my everyday task. Standby time, you get even more. You get about 4 to 5 days on daily usage, or just letting it sit. So I have much of that has to do with the operating system. Windows Phone is a great operating system for optimization, and having these specs, a 2600 milliamp hour battery with the Snapdragon 800 processor that does well with monetizing or monitoring battery life. So overall, you have great battery life on this device. It will not be an issue whatsoever. Now I'm actually going to put this back on here and get to the speaker. The speaker on the device, which I said before is kind of Iron Man-like with the device, you can see is kind of flushed here. It's great volume. There was no degradation of quality when pumping the music out or video out at max volume. There is not much bass, and because of this plastic casing here, you kind of feel the vibration of the when you max out the volume a bit on your back fingers when you're holding the device. But that's really my only gripe with it. There is no problem with the actual sound coming out of those speakers. Just to finish off the video, I have a Samsung Galaxy S5 here, and I have the ATIV SE right here. Now I'm actually going to do a size comparison just to show you the actual handheld look of it and overall size comparison of the Galaxy devices. Now as you can see here, let me move that up closer a bit. The ATIV SE is a bit thicker, a little bit chubbier, but it isn't that by much. You really don't feel the difference in your hand at all. Looking at it this way, as you can see, the Samsung Galaxy S5 is a bit of a taller device, but not by much at all. In terms of weight, I'll give it to the Samsung Galaxy S5. It was a bit heavier just because it is wider, and it is a 5.1-inch display versus the 5-inch display on the ATIV SE. But moving the Samsung Galaxy S5 out the way, this might be one of the best handheld devices I've held in a long time. It seems like the 5-inch display is a perfect size scenario for having content and just handheld overall. The bezels are very small on the device, so there isn't much space being wasted, and I guess the round corners of the device work well fitting in your hand. And the back, it does look rather sleek and rather slippery, but it's not. It's just a look, and it doesn't really have any problems in holding it on a daily basis. That pretty much sums up a review, folks. Now, this device can be found on Verizon Wireless for a pretty standard price of $199 on contract. It's competing with devices like the Nokia Icon and other smaller tier Nokia devices. In terms of the go-to device for a Windows Phone, it's really a preference on what you want to have. The Nokia Lumia Icon is a great device on Verizon. It does have similar specs as well. 5-inch display, 1080p resolution, very close in that regard. But in terms of the actual app suite, which Nokia really runs right now in the Nokia store and on their devices, and then you have Samsung's suite of apps with Watch On and ATIV S Beam and things like that. So it's really a matter of preference, but for a go-to device, I would pick the Samsung ATIV SE overall, just for its great handheld feel. The corners aren't very sharp. The display is very beautiful in comparison to the Samsung Galaxy S4 and 5. And just in terms of speed and quality, it feels like a really great device. Be sure to comment in the sections below, favorite the video, guys, subscribe if you haven't already. Please love that. We do love your feedback. And remember to always live your world in high definition.